welcome to Major League Wrestling Tonight. I'm your host, the Wrestling Snob, Adam Lavelle, and we're going to be talking about MLW Fusion number 91. The goal of MLW tonight is to begin talking about every single episode, reviewing, discussing, post-show thoughts and opinions of MLW Fusion throughout the year 2020, this year, this pandemic year, this terrible year for everybody, including us wrestling fans. Because you see, MLW, like just about every company in the world, held shows before everything was ground to a halt, stopped dead in its tracks by politicians forcing us to wear face masks right around the month of April. Still going on to this day, hopefully stopping sometime soon. Now, if we cover each show every Sunday here on MLW Tonight, starting with MLW Fusion 91, going all the way until their last fusion, currently MLW Fusion number 109, that gives us 18 weeks. My hope and belief is that in 18 weeks, MLW will be back with us, and this show, MLW Tonight, Major League Wrestling Tonight, will continue each Sunday reviewing the live shows. But right now, we're going to start with January 4th, 2020, ML Fusion number 91. Let's get to it. Folks, the show kicked off with a promo from Vance, the resident everyman. The guy who they say everybody relates to. Kicking off the show with a promo directed at Jimmy Havoc. These two have faced each other multiple times. They hate each other. They fight. I don't even want to call what they do wrestle. Not because they can't wrestle, but these two just are out to hurt each other with boards and tables and chairs, oh my, staple guns and everything. Not my forte, not my bag, not my cup of tea in the world of professional wrestling. And in my humble and personal opinion, you're actually hurting Vance to a degree, because I can see that the man can talk. I can see that the man can work inside the ring. I recently saw him in a few matches from other companies where he actually wrestled outside of the hardcore gimmick, including against someone as good as Chris Dickinson. He held his own and did a remarkable job. I know that many in MLW enjoy their hardcore matches, so I don't look for them to stop anytime soon. But look, if you want to put Vance in the title picture going forward, he needs to start wrestling more seriously as he can. As long as he's in these hardcore matches, I'll talk about him. I'll tell you what happened. But really, it's hard for me to take guys serious that do nothing but this hardcore nonsense. You know, the rules, wrestling within the confines of the rules of professional wrestling is what makes you a great professional wrestling, in my humble opinion. So Vance, let's see him in some straight-up matches. Why couldn't he have been in the Opera Cup? Folks, real quick, the Opera Cup is a tournament that started in the year 2019, bled over, continued into the year 2020. So some Opera Cup matches will be on these fusion shows that we'll be discussing. But if you want to see the whole thing, go to the Fight Network, FITE, spend a couple dollars, support MLW, download that show, and watch the whole tournament. It's a great tournament. It's a prestigious tournament that was held for years, but last won by Stu Hart, Bret Hart's father, and he's had the cup for a number of years, well past his retirement. Davey Boy Smith Jr. brings the cup to MLW, and they begin the Opera Cup all over. They start it all over, and that's where we're going to see a match in that tournament right here tonight on MLW 91, and what a match it's going to be. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. The next segment of MLW 91 was a comedic segment that I very much enjoyed. The Wrestling Snob liked the comedy segment? Yes, folks, because you can do comedy correctly in the world of professional wrestling, and it's done correctly here with Filthy Tom Lawler and the Filthy Dojo. They make their way to the ring to mock, to ridicule, to make fun of the Von Erich boys. Kevin Von Erich's sons, Ross and Marshall. He does a great job here. He mocks them, he ridicules them, he questions whether they're really Von Erichs. I mean, the Von Erichs are now from Hawaii. Aren't Von Erichs actually from Texas? They couldn't be real Von Erichs. No, instead, Filthy Tom Lawler announces he's going to face a Von Erich, an unknown Von Erich, but a real Von Erich, from the loins, his words, from the loins of Lance Von Erich. Now, I don't want to take the time to explain Lance Von Erich for those of you that don't know that story. Please Google it. When you watch the show, Google Lance Von Erich and read the crazy story of how he came to be. Lance wasn't a real Von Erich, we'll put it that way. Lance wasn't a real Von Erich, so obviously this Skip Von Erich, or whatever the Filthy Dojo's calling this guy, isn't going to be a real Von Erich. So he's going to come out here and humiliate some kid dressed up like a Von Erich, and it's going to work. That's comedy done right. If a heel faction uses comedy in a way to make fun of the baby faces, of the good guys that the fans all enjoy and love, that they're mocking them and making fun of them and ridiculing them in such a way, that is good comedy in professional wrestling, because why wouldn't a smarmy, jackass, dick heel make fun of the wrestlers everybody likes and enjoys? So this segment works. Now here comes the fake Von Erich that, of course, Filthy Tom Lawler beats handedly, although it wasn't a total squash. The kid put up a little bit of a fight. But he beats the kid with a rear naked claw hold, not a rear naked choke. He actually puts the claw on him while he's choking him out to continue to mock Ross and Marshall and Kevin, their father, Von Erich. So much so that the Von Erichs hit the ring at the end of this matchup to take care of Tom Lawler, who earlier, the year prior, turned on them in a vicious way. He was friends with the Von Erichs, turned on them out of jealousy and insecurity because they were getting all the attention. So the Von Erichs come out to take care of Filthy Tom Lawler, and they are jumped. They are stopped by none other than the Spirit Squad. Now, I know what some of you are going to say. Someone who calls himself the Wrestling Snob surely can't support and like the Spirit Squad. Well, of course he can't. But when you see what MLW is going to do with these guys, when you see what Court Bauer and those at MLW do with the Spirit Squad coming up shortly, not in MLW 91, but the next episode, 92, you're going to learn what all MLW fans have learned over the years. Always trust Court Bauer. Court Bauer, the owner, the CEO of MLW, he knows how to do wrestling angles and stories and gimmicks correctly. And you're going to see how they use the Spirit Squad. And it's a way that redeems them. That's right. Another reason to keep tuning in, but we're not going to cover that now. That's next week's MLW Tonight, Major League Wrestling Tonight. When you see what MLW does with the Spirit Squad, who are siding with Filthy Tom Lawler against the Von Erichs. The next segment was the introduction of a group from Japan, from a wrestling organization in China. But yes, the gentlemen are from Japan. They wrestle oftentimes in China, though they're not limited to that. They wrestle all over the world. They are called the Strong Hearts. The Strong Hearts ruled, led by none other than Shima, a professional wrestler known throughout the world. His partners are T-Hawk and now Lindemann, and they are in MLW to bring their style of wrestling to Major League Wrestling. They're here to take on all comers. They're here to be a big deal. They're here to make Major League Wrestling worldwide, as it clearly is. And you can see here from the Strong Hearts coming in to be part of the league. But of course, they're brutally attacked in their very first interview, in their very introduction promo, by none other than Contra Unit. Folks, if you don't know who Contra Unit is, you'll get more introduced to them in this program. They are very likely the best heel faction, the best heel stable in all of professional wrestling today. We've got Joseph Samuel as their spokesperson and a wrestler, very good at both. The MLW heavyweight champion, Jacob Fatu, and the former WWE star Simon Gotch, who you will see is the wrestler he truly is in Major League Wrestling, away from the circus that is WWE land. They are Contra Unit. They have taken over, literally, they've taken over the company. They are impossible to stop, and they attack the debuting Strong Hearts. And this will lead to a match coming up on MLW Fusion 91, a great trios matchup here beyond a shadow of a doubt. But after this segment, we cut to Alexander Hammerstone and Richard Holiday, the Dynasty, if you will, along with MJF, who at this point had not left for All Elite Wrestling. So we have the Dynasty here, two of the three members, talking about someone that is soon to debut in Major League Wrestling, someone that they're interested in talking to, Gino Medina, coming in from south of the border to bring a new flair, to bring a new taste of Latin America into Major League Wrestling. And that's what Richard Holiday is trying to explain to Alexander Hammerstone, that they could reach the Latin market in a bigger way if they would bring a gentleman, a young man like this, into the dynasty. Now, I don't know what MGF thinks about this because he's not present for this interview, but Hammerstone seems interested until none other than Selena De La Renta meets up with the boys. If you don't know Selena De La Renta, you are missing out, folks. She's one of the greatest young managers in the world of professional wrestling. Promoción de Diantos, I know I'm not saying that right. Her faction within Major League Wrestling is big stuff. She leads many, many people in her charge. And she's here to tell the Dynasty Brothers to back off because they can't give Gino Medina what she can give him. And Hammerstone accuses her of cock blocking him, and she looks down at his crotch and says, blocking what? It's a mature segment, a funny segment. Again, comedy done right because it's not over the top, and it simply leads to what we're going to see, and that is a fight. Not a literal fight in the ring, but a battle of wits, a battle of the mind for the rights to working with, to having within their stables Gino Medina. Who will he side with? Will it be Selena De La Renta? Will it be the Dynasty? Will it be somebody else? Will he stay on his own? We'll see that coming up on a future episode of MLW Fusion, but we're setting that up here. Next we have Davey Boy Smith. One of the biggest names in MLW because Davey Boy Smith Jr., everybody knows the British Bulldog, so most people out there are familiar with his son, his large, quite intimidating son, who is out to win the Opera Cup. Since his grandfather was one of the last to do it, Stu Hart was the last to do it, Davey Boy Smith wants to bring that cup back home to Canada. But before he can do that, he has to face in a non-title matchup, because titles aren't on the line in this tournament, folks. But the open weight national champion, Alexander Hammerstone, will get in the ring with Davey Boy Smith to decide who advances to the finals of the MLW Opera Cup. And what a match this is going to be. Pretty solid promo from Davey Boy Smith here, saying how he's going to take Hammerstone out. He's not going to let him stop him. And those are big words because Alexander Hammerstone is clearly one of the hottest and best professional wrestlings in the world right now, having recently returned from a tour of pro wrestling, Noah being all the better for it. So this matchup coming up very shortly on MLW Fusion 91 will be a great one, a match many want to see again with the open weight title on the line. I'm sure that's something we will see when MLW returns, hopefully around December of this year. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because coming up before this match, MJF joins the commentary booth. He's here to support his brother, his dynasty partner, Alexander Hammerstone, even though Alexander Hammerstone defeated MJF in a match to get this far into the tournament. That was another interesting and very good matchup, but you'll have to go back to 2019, which I highly recommend you do. You need to check out all of MLW Fusions. Many people have said, Adam, I've already watched them. Watch them again. I have watched MLW Fusion about 4 or 5 times. 91, the one playing behind me right now, the one we're reviewing and talking about and going over right here. I've watched it about 4 or 5 times already. Watch them again, guys. Why not? Join me each week. Next week, we're going to be here talking about Fusion 92. Watch it and join me and share your thoughts and comments on the YouTube page here. Let me know what you're thinking. But MGF is here to do commentary and support his brother in the dynasty, Alexander Hammerstone. And this match is as great as I thought it would be. Davey Boy Smith versus Alexander Hammerstone. It's 2 big, powerful guys who don't just rely on their power, though. These guys are very skilled in the ring. They're technical wizards as well as power guys. And that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to somebody making a mistake, because both of these guys are too good for this match to not go to like a time limit draw or something like that. That's kind of almost what I expected. Then what would they do in a tournament setting? I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out how they would deal with that. But that's not what happened. Davey Boy Smith wins the matchup. Now, there's some arguments to be had about how he could do that. Well, of course he's a great wrestler, but he was probably a little bit more motivated for this Opera Cup, being that Stu Hart was the last one to win it, and he was very emotionally motivated here. But the mistake came. The winner won due to the mistake of the other. Alexander Hammerstone's partner and friend in the dynasty, Richard Holiday, jumped up onto the ringside apron during a time that I'm not totally convinced that Hammerstone was in deep trouble. But Holiday felt the need to jump up on the apron, try to be a distraction, But instead, his distraction caused trouble for Alexander Hammerstone. Whenever Hammerstone went to hit Davey Boy Smith, he got out of the way and he hammered his own friend and partner, Richard Holliday, distracting, upsetting Alexander Hammerstone, who got scooped up into the running power slam that you were all familiar with Davey Boy Smith doing. His son also does, who then climbed the ropes, jumped off with a diving headbutt, and beat the national open weight champion in a terrific matchup to advance to the finals of the Opera Cup. Now, this was upsetting to the Dynasty. MJF was not happy. Alexander Hammerstone was not happy. But an interesting take, and this is something you're going to remember moving forward while watching MLW. Alexander Hammerstone wanted to shake the hand of Davey Boy Smith Jr. for having such a terrific matchup, and Richard Holliday lost his mind and forbid it. He would not allow him to do it, pulled him out of the ring, with Davey Boy Smith looking perplexed. What is that telling us? I'm telling you, it's telling us to keep an eye on Alexander Hammerstone and the dynamics within the Dynasty going forward. Could we see Alexander Hammerstone as one of the biggest faces in the world one day? I'm not guaranteeing it. I'm saying keep an eye on it. Davey Boy Smith will face the winner of a match we will see next week on Fusion 92, Flying Brian Pillman Jr. taking on Timothy Thatcher. And we get a promo. I would say this is one of the best promos I've ever seen from Brian Pillman Jr. Now, controversy time, folks. I'm not real thrilled with Brian Pillman Jr. on a personal level. He's being a little bit whiny and complainy, wanting out of his Major League Wrestling contract to sign with AEW. He's been performing on AEW Dark. Yes, I'm advertising that against my will, honestly. It's just something that goes along with the story here. Pillman wants out, probably thinks he can make more money in AEW. He's claiming because MLW isn't currently running shows that he needs to make money. Well, look, MLW has no problem with these guys working other shows. They just aren't going to be on TVs and pay-per-views because that's how contracts work. That's another story. But in my personal opinion, Brian Pillman Jr. needs to suck it up and honor his commitments. And then he can go work for AEW when his contract with MLW expires. But instead, he's trying to whine and cry and get out of it. Now, that being said, I'm giving the boy some props here. This promo, this babyface promo, talking about the Opera Cup, is one of the best promos I've seen him do. He works best as a babyface. I've seen him as a heel. Not very believable as a heel. It comes across fakey and staged, kind of. It just doesn't work. You know, some guys work better as faces than they do heels. Brian Pillman Jr. needs to be a face because everybody wants to cheer for the kid. Everybody fondly remembers his dad, and they don't want to boo him. And he cut a very solid babyface promo hill about how nothing was handed to him, about how he broke out of his home, not broke out, but broke away, got on his own when he was only 13 years old. It's a short promo, but done very well, and works very well as a babyface promo. I can't imagine him beating Timothy Thatcher. I can't see that. Coco Brazil comes out at one point, and he's an alternate in the tournament, meaning if someone gets hurt, he's slotted in, and he sort of vaguely threatens Pillman with a reminder that he's an alternate. So you got to watch out for Coco Brazil, who might just try to take out Brian Pillman. Will that happen? I'll have to wait till next week to find out, but the seeds were planted for sure. Next up, we had Contra Unit. Folks, your little introduction to them if you haven't been watching until now. If you've just started watching now to join us at MLW tonight, thank you, and I greatly appreciate it. But you got a little taste of who Contra Unit is right here with Joseph Samuel and the MLW World Champion Jacob Fatu introducing themselves, telling them how they are the global leaders in violence, and that they definitely are. Jacob Fatu throwing the fire, which you never see in the world of professional wrestling pretty much anymore. It's a big deal. It looks great. It works well. These guys are bad to the bone, if you will. Pardon the cheesy song quote, but these guys are a heel faction of all heel factions, and they're promising to take out Strong Hearts. They already did it during a promo session. Now they're promising to do it right in the middle of the ring, and that's our main event that comes up right after the promo. It is none other than the Contra Unit. Joseph Samuel, Jacob Fatu, and Simon Gotch in his Puppet Master mask, because he's the Puppet Master of Contra Unit, taking on Strong Hearts, Seema, T-Hawk, and now Lindemann. And this was a fight for the ages. This was a terrific main event. I mean, after giving us a match like Davey Boy Smith Jr. against the national openweight champion Alexander Hammerstone, which could main event anywhere in the world, MLW throws another match just as hot on top of that match as your main event, Strong Hearts versus Contra Unit. Good guys representing the world stage versus bad guys representing the world stage. I mean, this was the Marvel Universe good guys versus the Marvel Universe bad guys going head-to-head without superpowers and mysticism and stuff like that that other companies might give us, and silliness and ridiculousness. This was 6 grown men having a major fight. And boy, did it work well. And look, it's kind of shocking. But soon, if you're an MLW fan now, you're going to realize that Contra Unit winning clean, which they did here when Jacob Fatu pinned Sema, is not something out of the ordinary. Because while Contra Unit will break any rule they want to break, they don't have to break a single thing to be dominant. And that's the scary thing about them. They can push the rules, they can shred the rule book, they can question the rule book, they can do anything that they can wipe their rear ends with the rule book. But they don't have to. They don't have to. You know how a lot of times a babyface will want to fight a heel real bad because if the fight is made to be fair, the babyface has a big advantage? Not with Contra Unit. Not with guys as talented as these guys. Not with a faction that has a talker as good as Paul Heyman. That's right. You heard me say it. Joseph Samuel is just as good of a talker, just as good of a promo man, if not better, than Paul Heyman, because Joseph Samuel doesn't repeat himself ad nauseum. He just doesn't. That's another discussion for another day, but what a main event. Thank you, MLW, for the fight of all fights here, for a wonderful matchup that saw the bad guys, the heels, the black hats of the story overcome clean. A team that I bet most of you never dreamt they'd be able to do that to. Scary times ahead with Contra Unit ruling Major League Wrestling. Finally, the show ended not with a match, but with a little more stuff to say from Filthy Tom Lawler. Cut to the back. He called for a camera. Interesting how MLW does things. I love it. He called for a camera to come to him before the show ended. They sent one back. He's sitting on a set of steps outside of a locker room or something, and basically says to the Von Erich brothers, put your MLW tag team titles on the line, Ross and Marshall Von Erich, against my guys. Now, he doesn't tell us who they are, but it's a tag team that he's taken under his wing, that he's introduced martial arts to, and he promises they're going to dominate the tag team scene by using the martial arts, the mixed martial arts that he has taught them. Now, who could these two guys be? Now, those of you that know, wait till next week. Those of you that don't, you're going to be surprised. And there's probably a few of you that have a good idea where they're going with this. But you have to see it to believe it. And you have to know that this is good stuff. I promise you. Because MLW Fusion always is. What a great show ML Fusion 91 was to kick off 2020. Things only get better as we go, I promise, folks. I want to thank you for joining me. This is probably a little bit longer than I want it to be. I'd really like to tweak this to be less than 20 minutes if I can, because I know a lot of people don't like watching long, drawn-out programs. MLW Tonight, Major League Wrestling Tonight, is where you will find all things MLW Fusion moving forward with your host, Adam Lavelle, the Wrestling Snob. Have a good night.